Welcome. Wherever you are right now. Whether you're resting in bed, sitting alone with your thoughts, or simply needing to feel still for a while, you are welcome here. Let your shoulders relax. Let the weight of the day slowly begin to ease. And let this quiet moment become a space of peace. The story you're about to hear is one that stretches back thousands of years. A story about waiting and wondering. About a promise that seemed impossible. And a laughter that came when no one expected it. It's the story of Isaac, the child of laughter. And the story of two people, Abraham and Sarah, who walked long roads, endured long silences, and discovered that what feels impossible for us is never too hard for God. So breathe deeply now. Let the outside world fade. And come with me into the stillness of the desert, into the quiet of a waiting tent, into the heart of a woman who thought her time had passed, until joy arrived. Let's begin. Abraham and Sarah were old. Older than most would believe. Old enough that people had stopped asking when they would have a child. Old enough that they themselves had stopped hoping. They had followed a voice they knew was real, even though they could not see it. They had left their homeland, their people, their comforts, to go to a land they didn't know. The voice had made a promise. You will be the father of many nations. Look up at the sky. Count the stars. So shall your offspring be. And Abraham believed. He and Sarah pitched their tents in strange lands, moved with the seasons, trusted in that voice. But year after year passed. The stars still hung overhead. The promise still echoed. And Sarah's arms remained empty. She laughed once, years earlier, when the visitors told Abraham, this time next year, Sarah will bear a son. She had been inside the tent. She had heard the words. And she had laughed. A quiet, tired laugh. Not because she was mocking, but because she had long ago packed away her hope. She had been barren for decades. Her body had grown old. And so she laughed, because joy seemed too far to reach. But the voice heard her laugh, and answered gently, Is anything too hard for the Lord? Sarah said nothing, but the question stayed with her. Then came the waiting, and then the watching, and then something changed. Sarah began to feel different. Her body moved in ways it hadn't in years. New life stirred within her. Unmistakable. She said nothing at first. She waited in silence, as hope slowly returned like a dawn. And then the movement came. A flutter. A turn. A growing weight beneath her ribs. Sarah placed her hand against her belly, and felt what she had once believed was no longer possible. Life. Inside her. Real. The time came. The pain came too. It had been so long since Sarah had thought about childbirth that she wasn't sure how to prepare. But her body, the same body that had once seemed silent, now cried out with strength. And then came the cry. New. Sharp. Full of air and wonder. Abraham's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the child in Sarah's arms. And Sarah laughed again. Not the laugh of disbelief. This time, it was the kind of laugh that rises before you can stop it. The kind that belongs to miracle. God has brought me laughter, she said. And everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. They named him Isaac, which means he laughs. And from that day on, every giggle, every joyful sound from the tent was an echo of the promise kept. The old couple sat in the sun, watching their son roll in the dust. They sang to him, told him stories, laughed at his questions. Isaac was not just a child. He was proof that God had not forgotten them. That time had not cancelled their purpose. That age had not disqualified them from joy. Sarah had waited a lifetime, and the waiting was not wasted. But even in joy, there was pain still to come. For Abraham had another son, Ishmael, the son born to Hagar. Years earlier, when Sarah had given up on conceiving, she had asked Abraham to take her servant, Hagar, and have a child through her. It was a human solution to what felt like divine delay, and it had brought tension. Now Ishmael was a teenager, and when Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. Everyone gathered. There was music, celebration, food and laughter. But Sarah saw something. She saw Ishmael laughing at Isaac, not laughing with him, laughing at him, a mocking laugh. And something inside her tightened. She went to Abraham and said, "Send that woman and her son away. The son of the slave shall not share in the inheritance with my son, Isaac." Abraham's heart ached. He loved Ishmael too. But God spoke again. "Do not be afraid to let them go. I will take care of them. I will make a nation of Ishmael as well. But it is through Isaac that your promise will continue." So early the next morning, Abraham rose. He took bread and water. He gave them to Hagar. And with a heavy heart, he watched her and Ishmael walk into the wilderness. The sun was rising. The boy looked back once, and Abraham turned away. Isaac grew. He learned to walk among the goats and sheep. He learned to listen to the wind in the tall grass, to watch his father build altars, to hear his mother's voice at night. The camp was filled with his laughter. He asked questions about the stars. He followed his father on long walks. He picked up stones and imagined building something great. Isaac was more than just a son. He was a reminder. Every day he lived, he reminded Abraham and Sarah of the faithfulness of God, of the promise that had been spoken and fulfilled. Sarah would often sit and watch Isaac sleep. His hair curled like hers. His face was soft in the moonlight. She would run her fingers through the dust at the edge of the tent and think back to all the years she had waited, all the moments she had given up, all the times she had whispered into the darkness, "Have you forgotten me?" But now, there was no room for that question. The answer was sleeping in her arms. Warm. Breathing. Alive. Abraham, too, changed in those years. He had always trusted God, but now he had seen the impossible unfold before him. He had held the future in his hands. He had seen how time does not limit God, how delay is not the same as denial. He had watched as the story unfolded, exactly when it was meant to. And though there were still challenges ahead, still roads to walk and choices to make, he walked them with a new kind of quiet assurance. Because now he knew, truly knew, that God always finishes what he begins, and that some of the greatest miracles take the longest to arrive. At night, around the fire, Abraham would tell Isaac the stories of their journey. He would speak of the stars, and the first time he heard the voice. He would tell him about leaving home, about building altars, about the visitors who came, and told Sarah she would have a child. And Isaac would listen, wide-eyed and smiling, laughing when he heard how his mother had laughed at God's promise. But it was no longer a bitter story. It was a joyful one, because the laughter had been redeemed. It had been transformed. from something tired and unsure, into something full of life and beauty. Isaac grew strong, and from his life would come another chapter in the great unfolding of God's promise. He was the child of laughter, and he carried in his blood the promise of a people. And now, as this story draws to its close, maybe you're left thinking about the waiting in your own life. Because all of us, in one way or another, are waiting for something. Maybe you're waiting for restoration, for healing, for direction, for a relationship to change, or for a dream to be fulfilled. Maybe your arms feel empty too. Maybe the years have stretched long, and you've quietly begun to believe that the thing you long for will never arrive. If so, this story is for you. The story of Isaac's birth is not just about a miracle child. It's about the nature of hope. It's about the God who does not forget, who hears even the softest laugh of disbelief and turns it into joy. It's about promises that don't expire, about faith that waits, even when it grows tired. It's about the power of believing in something you cannot yet see, something that may take years, even decades, to come to life. Sarah once said, "God has brought me laughter." And that sentence, spoken by a woman nearly 90 years old, is one of the most beautiful in all of Scripture. It reminds us that it is never too late for joy to arrive, that even in the wilderness, even in the dry places, something new can still be born. So tonight, if your heart is weary, if you've been waiting longer than you ever thought you could, if hope feels distant, remember Sarah. Remember Abraham. Remember that the God who called them was the same one who fulfilled the promise at exactly the right time. He is not hurried. He is not slow. He is always on time. And he has not forgotten you. Even if the dream has faded. Even if your faith has grown quiet. Even if you've laughed like Sarah did. Not because you believe, but because you've stopped expecting anything at all. Even then, he is still able, still listening, still faithful. Take this with you as you rest. Laughter is coming. Not the cynical kind, but the kind that rises when your heart is finally full. When your arms are no longer empty. When the silence gives way to joy. It may not come today, or tomorrow, but it will come. Because the God who made stars is also the God who keeps promises. And he is not done writing your story. So rest now. Let the stillness hold you. Let the story settle gently into your heart. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are deeply, truly loved. And one day, you too will say, "God has brought me laughter." Good night. And may peace remain with you.